So, I don't even know how to begin telling this story, but I've got to get it off my chest. It started out like any other family helping family situation, but it didn't stay that way for long. And what happened next? Well, that's the part that got me shaking my head and thinking, what the heck did I just do? Let's rewind a bit. For the past 6 months, I've been financially supporting a few of my family members, mostly my parents and my older sister, Jess. The economy hit them hard, and while I'm not rolling in cash, I'm doing all right in my job. I'm in my late 20s, and I've always been close to my family, so it seemed like the right thing to do. I paid their bills, covered their rent a couple of months, even helped with groceries. You know, the usual when you're the responsible one. At first, they were thankful. They'd send me texts. We couldn't have done it without you. And you're such a blessing. But here's where it started to get weird. Slowly, those texts turned into expectations. They'd call, "Hey, can you help with the car insurance this month? We're a little tight." Then, "Can you pitch in for the heating bill? You know how it gets cold here." And then it was, "We're a little behind on the rent. Could you help us out?" And each time, I said yes, thinking I was just doing what any decent family member would do. But then, one day, I got a text from my cousin. It was just a simple, "Hey, check this out." I opened the video, and to my horror, it was a clip of my entire family talking behind my back. They were sitting around in my sister's living room, having some kind of family meeting. And as they all chattered away, I heard my name pop up. Jess was the first one to speak, and she said, "Ugh, I can't believe we have to keep asking her for help. It's like she's the last resort." My stomach dropped, and then my mom chimed in. "She doesn't do enough, though. I mean, we help her out when we can, but she's always busy or too tired." And just like that, all the gratitude I thought I had been getting from them seemed like a facade. I was the last resort. They were annoyed with me for only helping when they needed it. It made me feel like a sucker that I sat there staring at my phone, just shocked. They didn't know I could hear them. They didn't know I was about to hear everything. Jess, my own sister, was the one complaining the most. This was the same sister who would call me crying when she couldn't pay her bills or needed an emergency babysitter for her kids. This was the same family who'd made me feel like I was their only shot at staying afloat. But now? Now I was the last resort. I didn't say anything. I didn't confront anyone. I sat in silence. But I knew one thing for sure. I was done. The next rent was coming due in a few days, and they were going to need help, like always. Only this time, things were going to be a little different. I spent the next couple of days in complete silence. No calls, no texts, no responses to any of their messages. Then, the day before rent was due, I sent them a single message. "You guys are on your own this time." No explanation. "No, I'm sorry. No, I can't help." Just that I could feel the tension building. I didn't hear anything for hours. But then, the phone call started. The first call came from my mom. I let it ring out, and then my phone buzzed with a text from her. "What do you mean? You've always helped us. What's going on?" I didn't reply. I just let the silence hang. After about an hour, I got a call from Jess. I almost picked it up, but then I remembered how she'd talked about me behind my back, and I couldn't bring myself to. The calls kept coming. Mom, Jess, even my aunt. Everyone started reaching out, trying to figure out what was happening. I wasn't even angry yet. I was more exhausted. But I knew I had to stand my ground. The next day, rent was due. I watched as they scrambled. I knew they were trying to figure out how to cover it, probably already calling every family member they could. I almost felt bad, but then I remembered the video. The way they'd spoken about me. Around noon, I got a message from Jess. "Please, I don't know what's going on, but we really need your help this time. We're not asking for much, just enough to get through. Please." It stung. She still didn't get it. She still didn't understand that I had been there for them, that I had helped. But this was different. This wasn't just about the money. It was about respect. I was about to leave it at that. But then my phone buzzed again. It was a video from my cousin. I hesitated before opening it, already knowing it wouldn't be good. The video started, and it was a clip of my family, Mom, Jess, and a couple of other relatives, sitting in the living room. And they were talking about me. Again, this time, the conversation was even worse. Jess was yelling, "Why does she always act like she's doing us a favor? We're her family. We've supported her whole life. And now that we're struggling, she's just abandoning us. It's not fair." Mom added, "I swear, she's got this attitude like we're not even worth her time anymore. And after everything we've done for her." I couldn't believe it. They still didn't see it. They still thought I was some kind of backup plan, a safety net they could rely on whenever things went wrong. I felt the anger bubbling up now. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about how little they truly valued me, how entitled they were, how they thought they could keep draining me without ever offering anything in return. I thought for a moment about how to respond. I could have called them, told them exactly what I thought, but that wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't change their behavior. I needed to make them understand the consequences of their actions. That's when the idea hit me. It was going to be risky. It was going to feel cold, but it would send the message I needed. I grabbed my phone and started typing. I didn't hesitate. Hey, I just watched the video. I'm done. I'm not going to be your backup anymore. From now on, you figure it out. Good luck. I hit send. The response was immediate. My phone started buzzing like crazy, but I didn't pick up. I didn't respond. I just sat there, feeling a strange mix of relief and tension. I had no idea what was coming next, but I knew one thing for sure. This was the beginning of something big, something that would change the way they saw me forever. And as I stared at my phone, waiting for them to realize the magnitude of what I'd just done, I couldn't help but wonder, how far would they go to get what they thought they were entitled to? The next few hours were absolute chaos. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Every few minutes, a new notification would pop up, texts, missed calls, voicemails. But I didn't answer. I just sat there, watching the messages flood in, feeling a twisted sense of satisfaction. They were panicking. They were finally starting to realize they couldn't always depend on me. Then, around 4 p.m., I got a voicemail from my mom. Her voice was shaky, and I could hear her trying to hold back tears. I don't understand what's happening, sweetheart. Please, you're our daughter. We've always been there for you, haven't we? Why are you doing this now? What's going on? I could feel the weight of her words, but I didn't budge. I wasn't going to let them guilt trip me anymore. I wasn't going to be their doormat. A couple of hours later, Jess sent a long message, filled with all the things I didn't want to hear. You know what, fine. If you want to be a selfish asterisk, then do it. But don't come crying when you realize how much you've hurt us. We're your family. We've done everything for you. And this is how you repay us? I thought you were better than this. I read the message. The anger was still there, but now it was mixed with a sense of bitterness. She still didn't get it. She still thought that because we were family, I owed them everything. The next morning, I got a text from my aunt. She had somehow gotten involved, probably after hearing about the situation from Jess. The message was more direct. This is crazy. What happened to you? Why are you being so heartless? You're acting like you owe us nothing when you know damn well we've been there for you. This is not how family acts. I was done. I felt like I'd said everything I needed to say, but it didn't stop there. That afternoon, I was at work when I got a call from my boss. He told me there had been an urgent message from my mom and Jess, something about an emergency. They had even gone as far as calling my workplace to track me down. I could feel my blood starting to boil. This was getting out of hand. But the worst part? I wasn't sure how far they'd go to make me cave. That's when the final straw came. I got a text from my mom saying, "We need help or we're going to lose everything. If you don't help, you're not just letting us down, you're ruining our lives. Do you really want to be responsible for that?" I sat there, staring at my phone, my hands trembling. I wanted to help. I really did. But everything about this was so twisted now, so unfair. I thought about how my family had treated me, how they'd taken advantage of my kindness. And then I remembered the video my cousin had sent me, the one where they'd called me the last resort, the one where they'd complained about how little I'd done, even after all the money I'd given them. The guilt wasn't there anymore. I wasn't going to be their fallback anymore. But how was I supposed to make them understand? How was I supposed to make them feel the pain of what they'd done? And then it hit me. If they wanted to see what real consequences looked like, I would show them. Not with words, but with actions. That I didn't know what was going to happen next. But one thing was certain, this wasn't over. It was just beginning. The days that followed were tense. My family tried to reach out every which way they could. Texts, calls, even emails. I wasn't responding. I wasn't going to break, not this time. And slowly, it seemed like they were starting to feel the weight of what they'd done. I could tell they were desperate. Jess started sending me videos of her kids, trying to tug at my heartstrings. The usual, "Look what you're doing to us" routine. But it didn't work anymore. The guilt had stopped working a long time ago, but what did get to me, surprisingly, was a message from my dad. He hadn't said much up until now. He wasn't the type to confront me directly, But when I read his message, it felt different. I don't know what's going on, but I raised you to be better than this. You've always been there for your family. Don't let pride get in the way of what's important. The words stung. They hit harder than I expected because deep down, I knew I'd always been the one to fix everything. I was the one who kept it all together, even when they didn't appreciate it. But still, I didn't respond. Then, one evening, I got a call from my cousin again. I almost didn't pick up, but I was curious. He'd always been the level-headed one in the family, so I knew he might be the one who'd see things from my side. "What the hell is going on?" he asked bluntly as soon as I answered. "Everyone's losing it over here. Your mom's a mess. Jess is threatening to kick you out of the family group chat. Are you seriously doing this to us?" His words hit me differently. This was family, my family, freaking out because I had finally said no. And for what? For refusing to continue letting them walk all over me. "You guys really think you're entitled to my help," I said, my voice steady but cold. "I'm not going to keep rescuing you when you've never learned to stand on your own." He sighed on the other end. "I get it, but don't you think you're overreacting? We're just asking for a little help, just this one last time. You can't just abandon us." "You think I'm abandoning you?" I snapped. "You've been using me for months, taking everything I give without so much as a thank you. And now you want me to help again? What would you have done if I hadn't been there? How long do you think I can keep doing this?" There was a long pause. "Look," he said, "I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We're all messed up right now. But maybe, just maybe, you're punishing the wrong people. You're punishing your family." I didn't respond right away. His words lingered in the air like a cloud of doubt. But I couldn't let myself second-guess this decision. I'd already made it. I was done being the fallback plan. The next morning, I found out that things had gotten even worse. Mom had apparently called a family meeting. Jess had told everyone I was being selfish, and now they were trying to get me to feel bad for them, saying things like, "She's turning her back on us." But then, just as I was about to shut it all out and ignore the chaos, something happened that made everything escalate. I got a call from my landlord. "We're going to need that rent payment by the end of the day, or we'll have to start eviction proceedings." They said that. I felt my stomach drop. I knew the situation was getting dire for them, but this was bad. And I knew, without a doubt, that they would come to me at the last minute, expecting me to bail them out again. But this time, I wasn't going to that. I decided to do something drastic. Something that would make them realize that their actions had consequences. That I hung up the phone and sent my mom one last text. "I'm not your safety net anymore. You're on your own. I've done enough." The waiting began. That I didn't know how they'd react. I didn't know if this was the end of it all or the beginning of something much worse. But the one thing I knew for sure was that I had finally taken back control. And as I sat there, staring at my phone, waiting for the fallout, I couldn't help but wonder, how far would they go to make me change my mind? Would they turn on me completely, or would this be the wake-up call they needed? The answer came sooner than I expected. The phone rang again. But this time, I wasn't sure if I was ready for what was coming. I stared at the phone screen, watching as it buzzed with my mom's name flashing across the display. I hesitated. I knew this was it. The moment they either came to their senses or went full-on nuclear. I took a deep breath and answered, bracing myself for whatever was coming. "What?" Her voice was barely audible, shaky, like she couldn't believe what had just happened. "Why are you doing this? I thought you loved us." I could hear the cracks in her voice. The desperation, the guilt tripping. I almost felt bad, but I had to remind myself that this was exactly what they did to me every time I helped. They made me feel like I owed them everything. But I didn't. Not anymore. "I do love you, Mom," I said quietly. But love doesn't mean constantly enabling people to make the same mistakes over and over again. You've never learned how to stand on your own, and I can't keep being your crutch. The line was silent for a few seconds. Then she whispered, "But your family. You're our family. You're supposed to help." "And I have." I snapped, the frustration rising again. "I've been helping you for months. Hell, for years. But I'm not doing it anymore. You've had enough of my help. It's time you learn how to fix things yourself." She went quiet again, but I could hear her trying to keep it together. "You're punishing us, your family, like we're strangers to you. How could you just turn your back like this?" I felt the weight of her words, but I stood firm. "I'm not punishing you. I'm setting boundaries. I've done enough. And now, you need to face the consequences of what you've been doing. I'm not going to fix it for you this time." The call ended with her barely saying goodbye. I didn't feel a sense of relief, though. It wasn't over yet. They weren't just going to let me walk away like that. They were going to fight back, and fight back they did. The very next day, I woke up to a flood of messages. From Jess, from Mom, even my aunt again. It was as if they couldn't let it go. It was one guilt trip after another. Each message more desperate than the last. That Jess's text was the worst. "I can't believe you would do this to me. I know we've had our differences, but I never thought you'd turn on us. You've always been there for me, and now you're just letting us drown. I can't believe I have to do this on my own with my kids. Thanks for nothing." I felt that familiar sting. But then something strange happened. Instead of caving, instead of feeling guilty, I just didn't care. I had to remind myself again, this wasn't my fault. I wasn't the bad guy here. They were, but the real bombshell came a few hours later. My aunt sent me a message, along with a picture of my mom sitting on the couch, looking utterly defeated. "This is on you, you know." She's heartbroken. We all are. You've broken this family apart with your selfishness. You're making her feel like she's lost her daughter, like she's a failure. Do you really want to be the one to do this to her? I stared at the message, my heart pounding in my chest. For a second, I wondered if maybe I had gone too far. But then I thought about everything they had said to me, about how they had used me, taken advantage of my kindness, and only seen me as a tool for their convenience. No, I wasn't the one breaking the family. They had already done that to themselves. That I didn't reply. I just let the silence hang. But the storm wasn't over yet. That night, things escalated beyond just guilt trips. The family began to rally against me. Jess posted something on Facebook, calling me out publicly. When your own family abandons you during the hardest time of your life, you know you're done. Don't ever let anyone tell you that blood means anything. Some people will only be there when they need something from you. I'll never forget what you've done to us. The post quickly gained traction. My other relatives started chiming in with supportive comments, siding with Jess, piling on the accusations. It felt like a whole family-sized betrayal. They weren't just mad at me. They were publicly shaming me, making it look like I was the villain. But instead of feeling angry or sad, I felt a strange calmness. They were making this public now. They were forcing me into a corner where I had no choice but to stand my ground, to make sure they saw the consequences of their behavior. The next day, I decided to turn the tables. I shared the video my cousin had sent me, the one where they were talking about me, calling me the last resort, complaining that I didn't do enough. I posted it on my own Facebook, adding a caption, "This is what my family really thinks of me. This is how they talk about me behind my back. Maybe now, they'll see what I've been dealing with all this time." The fallout was immediate. Comments exploded. My family members were furious, accusing me of airing dirty laundry, of betraying them in the worst way possible. But this time, I didn't care. The truth was out, and now they were forced to face it. For a while, there was nothing but silence. No messages, no phone calls, no angry texts. It felt like they were trying to figure out what to do next, like they were waiting for me to cave. But I didn't. I stuck to my guns. Then, a week later, I got a call from my dad. The one person who hadn't really been part of the drama. The one person who had stayed quiet. But I could feel his presence looming over everything. "I think we need to talk," he said, his voice soft but serious. "Come over, let's have a face-to-face." I agreed, knowing this was the moment where everything would either fall apart or start to heal. When I walked into my parents' house, it felt like I was entering a war zone. Jess was there, and so was my mom. They both looked exhausted, like they'd been fighting each other more than they'd been fighting me. The tension in the room was thick, but I wasn't backing down now. "I've been thinking," my dad said, sitting down in the living room, "about everything that's happened. And I realize we've all messed up. But maybe, just maybe, we've been using you for far too long." I looked at him, surprised. It was the first time anyone in the family had admitted that I wasn't the one in the wrong. "I'm glad you see that," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Jess shifted uncomfortably in her chair. I don't know how to say this," she started, her voice quieter than usual. "But I shouldn't have put that post out. That was wrong. I let my anger get the best of me, and I shouldn't have dragged you into it like that." I nodded slowly. "I appreciate that, Jess. But that doesn't change what's happened. I needed to hear that from you. And from Mom, too." There was a long pause, and finally, my mom spoke up. "I never meant to make you feel like you owed us everything. I've been selfish, and I've taken you for granted. I'm sorry. I couldn't believe it." After everything, she was finally admitting it. But even with the apology, it didn't erase the pain. I was glad to hear it, but the trust had been broken. It would take time to rebuild, and I wasn't sure we'd ever fully get there. I don't need you to say sorry, I replied, my voice steady. I just need you to understand. I'm done being the person everyone runs to when things go wrong. If you want things to change, it has to start with you, all of you. There was a long silence after that. No one seemed to know what to say next. But I could tell something had shifted. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't the one holding everything together. They were. After a while, my dad stood up. I'm going to make sure we fix this, okay? No more using you as a backup plan. No more pretending like we can't do it on our own. We'll work through this together. It wasn't a perfect resolution, and I wasn't expecting everything to magically get better overnight. But it was a start. They'd finally seen the truth, and they were starting to face the consequences of their actions. As I left my parents' house that day, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Relief. I knew it wasn't over, but it was a step in the right direction. Maybe, just maybe, my family would learn to stand on their own 2 feet. Maybe they would finally understand what it meant to respect me, to stop using me as a safety net. And as I walked away, I couldn't help but feel like the hardest part was finally over. They had been forced to see the truth. And now, it was their turn to change, but I wasn't holding my breath. So what do you think? Did I do the right thing? Or should I have tried to work things out differently?